Here's an example of how God walks among us. In one of our attacks on the Somme, all the observers up forward were uncertain as to what had happened. We didn't know whether our infantry had captured their objective, failed, or gone beyond it. The battlefield, as far as the eye could reach, was a bath of mud. It is extremely easy in the excitement of an offensive, when all landmarks are blotted out, for our storming parties to lose their direction. If this happens, a number of dangers may result. A battalion may find itself up in the air, which means that it failed to connect with the battalions on its left and right. Its flanks are then exposed to the enemy. It may advance too far and start digging itself in at a point where it was previously arranged that our artillery should place their protective wall of fire. We, being forward artillery observers, are the eyes of the army. It is our business to watch for such contingencies, to keep in touch with the situation as it progresses, and to send our information back as quickly as possible. We were peering through our glasses from our point of vantage when, far away in the thickest of the battle smoke, we saw a white flag waving, sending back messages. The flag waving was repeatedly desperate. It was evident that no one had replied, and probable that no one had picked up the messages. A signaller who was with us read the language for us. A company of infantry had advanced too far. They were most of them wounded, very many of them dead, and were in danger of being surrounded. They asked for artillery to place a curtain of fire in front of them and for reinforcements to be sent up. So they're in their trench. They're the artillery guys. They're looking out. They see flag, which is how one of the methodologies they had for signaling and communicating. You do these different signals and you could spell out words. And so they're getting a signal back from this group that they might get surrounded. We need some artillery support in here. We at once phoned the orders through to our artillery and notified the infantry headquarters of the division that was holding the front. But it was necessary to let those chaps know that we were aware of their predicament. They'd hang on if they knew that. Otherwise, without orders, our signaller was getting his flags ready. He hopped out onto the trench. He hopped out of the trench and onto the parapet. He didn't stand a 50-50 chance. The Hun was familiar with our observation station and strafed it with persistent regularity. The signaller turned to the senior officer present. "What shall I send them?" "Tell them their messages have been received and that help is coming." Out the chap scrambled, a flag in either hand. He was nothing but a boy. He ran crouching like a rabbit to a hump of mud where his figure would show up against the sky. His flags commenced waving. "Messages received, help coming." They didn't see him at first. He had to repeat the words. We watched him breathlessly. We knew what would happen. At last, it did happen. A Hun observer had spotted him and flashed the target back to his guns. All about him, the mud commenced to leap up and bubble. He went on signaling the good word to those stranded men up front. Message received, help coming. At least they'd seen him. They were signaling okay. It was at that moment that a whiz-bang lifted him off his feet and landed him all of a huddle. His bit. It was what he'd volunteered to do when he came from Canada. The signal, okay, in the battle smoke was like a testimony to his character. So like I said, this had to be a common attitude, and it's just hard for us to understand this. I mean, it's hard for me that was in the military for 20 years to understand this attitude that, you know what, it's your time to die now. Step up and go pass this signaling back to them. And I'm not saying that, you know, modern military guys don't take risks. Obviously, they take enormous risks, and we've got taken drastic casualties. But this is definitely a different mentality. There's no doubt about it. I mean, obviously, it's a different mentality when you're losing millions of men. Millions of men.